Hello, my name is Harrison Pope, and my co-investigator is Alan Ruiz. I'm a student here at California State University, Channel Islands, from the Department of Psychology. My faculty mentor is Dr. Weldon Zane Smith, PhD. This presentation will be examining video game use, depression, and spatial cognition, the unknown relationship. So a little bit of background here on the studies between the different variables. So one study in 2006 looked at differences between video game players and non-video game players. They discovered that video game players exhibited higher levels of spatial and perceptual awareness in tasks tested in comparison to their non-gamer counterparts. So meaning those who played video games in this study had an easier time with spatial reasoning tasks and perceptual awareness compared to people who do not play video games. A 2008 study sought to examine the links between unipolar depression, schizophrenia, and spatial reasoning. The study also found that participants with unipolar depression disorder exhibited more difficulty with spatial reasoning tests. So essentially, people who had major depression disorder, unipolar depression, had more difficulty working on spatial reasoning, understanding spatial reasoning measures and tests that they were given. Additionally, a 2014 literature review compiled several positive effects associated with video games. This is all looking at good effects of video games, not bad ones. They found that individuals who play video games, specifically shooter games, exhibit higher levels of spatial reasoning. The review also found that video games are also typically used to generate positive moods in the user. So this is where we see one of the first studies where spatial cognition and depression have kind of coincided in one study and looked at together as variables. Additionally, a 1995 study discovered a relationship between higher depression level and lower scores in general cognitive tests. This also includes spatial reasoning tests. So it was not specifically into spatial reasoning, this study, but it also encompassed spatial reasoning with other executive functioning tests that were administered. Additionally, several studies have sought to find a relationship between video game use and depression. However, shown in the above studies, the results are inconsistent. A 2015 study examined video games, social media addiction separately across different psychological disorders. And they also found that studies who played video games exhibited higher levels of depression. So again, inconsistent, because one study is telling us that they show higher levels of positive behavior and affect, and the other one's saying that there's higher levels of depression in those individuals. So hypothesis. So the literature has obviously shown a strong relationship between each of these variables tested independently against each other: video games, spatial cognition, as well as depression. So based on the literature, I hypothesized that the higher the individual scores in the video game measure, that the higher their score will be on the spatial cognition measure. And additionally, the lower the depression score, I predict the higher that their spatial cognition score measure will be. So methods. So here's how we recruit our participants. They're recruited through using the SONA system, which is the student recruitment system here at Channel Islands that's able to recruit students online, given to psychology students to give access to it. Participants first completed the Gaming Attitudes, Motives, and Experiences Scale, also known as GAMES. Next, they completed the International Depression Symptom Scale, general version, also known as the IDSSG or IDSS. And then finally, they completed the spatial reasoning measure, which was the measure of the ability to form spatial mental imagery, also known as the MASME, which is a spatial cognition measure. Spatial cognition involves perceptual awareness and awareness of where things are in your environment and the space around you. Sample size was 39, and it was collected solely at California State University, Channel Islands in the Broome Library study rooms. Participants were allowed unlimited time to complete the video game and depression scales. And once they completed those scales, I was notified, and then I would begin a timer for 10 minutes maximum to complete the spatial cognition test. So after 10 minutes, any responses that were left unmarked were counted as incorrect. Here's a sample MASME question. So when participants would take the survey, they would see this unfolded cube here, and they would have to match these, they had to choose 2 item option responses. So for number 1 here, we have this little circle and the X, which indicates that it's rotated upwards. So the circle that should be on the top is on the side, and the X that's normally on the bottom is facing up. So you'd have to find the corresponding side pieces for this. And participants were given about 23 of these items to respond to, and each required 2 responses. So if one response was wrong, 1 point would be removed from the survey, and that's how the score would happen. If they got 2 right, they get 2 points. It was not scored in a way where if one was wrong, the entire item would count as wrong. Descriptive statistics. So the 39 of our participants reported gender, 38 reported age, and 37 reported major. 36 reported a video game score, completing the whole video game score item scale. So the mean gender was 1, which is mostly males. Mean age was 23. Mean year was sophomores. Mean major was psychology. And the way we worked out is psychology was inputted as 1, coded that way, and 2 with any other major. So unfortunately, I don't have demographic data for other majors that took this survey. They're just classified under other. MASME score is the average was 28. Video game score, the average was 74, and depression score, the average was 40.42. So results. A multiple regression analysis was implemented to determine whether the video game use scale and depression scale could significantly predict the spatial cognition score participants. IBM SPSS statistics version 26 was used to conduct the analysis. Before beginning the regression analysis for the video game scale items and the depression scale items were examined using a reliability analysis. So I checked the Chromebox Alpha scores of all the scaled items to ensure that combining them into a separate variable would be appropriate. And they both scored very highly in reliability based on the Chromebox Alpha score, and were transformed using the transform function into new variables. Upon returning respectable alpha scores, the 2 scales were independently summed and transformed into scaled variables. So we have 2 separate scales now that are the scaled score for each person. Then a multiple regression analysis was examined using the scaled variables predictors and spatial cognition as the outcome variable. And I'll now show you table 2, which will have the results for the regression analysis. So here's the results of the regression analysis. You can find the beta coefficient, the p-values, and all that right here. Unfortunately, as you can see, the results were non-significant for both predictors, and neither predictor significantly predicted the spatial cognition score of the participants. So discussion. While the results were non-significant, there is still important information that can be gathered. The non-significance is likely due to the minimal sample size that had been collected. Unfortunately, we were only able to gather 39 participants due to the history effect of COVID-19 that has been going on right now. But I believe future data collection and analysis of these variables would be extremely useful and important research that we can benefit from. So future research should seek to study these variables in older populations, as we only examine individuals in a university setting. But very well, there could be population differences in individuals in midlife age and individuals elderly age, and even younger individuals in adolescence and juvenile stages of life. Here are the references that you can also find on the website if you would like to examine them more closely and visit them yourself. Acknowledgements. I'd like to thank Dr. Weldon Zane Smith for his guidance and assistance during this project, and I'd also like to thank my co-investigator, Alan Ruiz, for his assistance with data collection during this project. Thank you.